Attention humans, Bob Silent here, and we're trying something a little bit different today. Not crazy different, but this is a new series I'm going to call Bob's Crazy Ideas. Now, my first episode of Bob's Crazy Ideas is the idea of a massively multiplayer online game that generates Ethereum tokens, right? Some sort of ERC20 compatible token that could be traded on the Ethereum network. And you build the game from scratch, and then you would make some part of the game into a tokenized asset. Now, this could be any number of things, and this could be from any number of games. For example, imagine if you could tokenize junk in Fallout 76, or the ammo, or, purified water. If you could tokenize that and then trade it amongst players, you've then generated something that could actually have an economic value. This is a crazy idea that could be useful for virtual economics. Imagine even a multiplayer survival game kind of like Subnautica, for example, where the resources you collect you could use to trade and sell amongst players. The question is how you would do it, and how you would fund the servers for a massively multiplayer online game. And the idea would be you create a rule governed by the Ethereum smart contract about how much of this token is generated at any given time interval. And you would base this upon the number of active players, so it would be a scalable resource based upon the number of people who are actually interested in playing the game. And then you would split that, where 80% of that resource would be put into the game for players to collect, and then 20% of that resource is given to the developer and game company to pay for hosting and pay for the programmers and all of that nonsense. Now, what sort of assets in a game could you tokenize? The first one that comes to mind would be raw materials or resources. Now, this could be implemented as simply as, say, in Fortnite. If a player in Fortnite, the winner, got to keep the wood, the brick, and the metal that he collected in the game, and then could, give himself a little boost in these resources when he started the next match, and that was a tokenized asset, that would probably be financially viable. People would probably pay for that sort of little material advantage, right? And then some people could make a living farming for the lazy people. In more relevant terms for my normal audience, like in Entropia Universe, if, say, they tokenized Listerium ingots or animal muscle oil or Nova fragments even, where you could, anything in your storage you could withdraw as a token, trade around to other players, they could redeem that asset as the item, right? Now, the second idea would be refined materials, components, like finished products. Like in Elder Scrolls Online, if you could sell high-value potions so not everybody had to make them all the time. Or if, you tokenize, not like animal eye oil, but you tokenize, conductors and springs in Entropia Universe. Or, if you tokenized, things like aerogel, ship hull, aerogel, or components for a submarine from Subnautica, or ship parts in EVE Online. The other idea is you could give a value to ammunition or decaying items. Like, imagine it how if every bullet in Fallout 76 was tokenized, how many more people would use the 10 millimeter and the 38 rounds so they could save up like the rockets and mini nukes so they could sell them on the market to other players. And then last but not least, the idea of selling your stats, your skill points, or your experience points. Like in a game like Entropia Universe, where you're grinding out every attribute and skill from a list of like complicated professions that affect how you do shooting or mining or whatever you're doing in the game. You could tokenize each of those different skills, or like in general you could, like, instead of the character leveling up, sell their experience points to other players who want to level up. You'll notice that in no time in any of this have I suggested that you tokenize the in-game currency of the game, because you, as an alternate way to fund your project, a game programmer may want to sell the currency without affecting any type of token market, right? Now, in my pie-in-the-sky universe, it's going to be some sort of like survival-based game, right? I would like to have an MMORPG. It's kind of similar in concept economically to EVE Online or Entropia Universe, right? And you would tokenize all of the assets that I listed before. In the case of like futuristic MMO, you would tokenize various forms of ammunition, and you would make multiple forms of ammunition. Why would you make a single kind of ammunition? You would have like various kinds of pistol and energy ammunition. You wouldn't just do energy or BLP ammo like Entropia Universe does. You give a variety of options, and you would have raw material resources that you could refine, and you would develop skills that you use when you're doing stuff. So various activities in the game would give you various skills and such, and you could tokenize all of that stuff. That would be a huge list of smart contracts to develop, and then you have to figure out how the loot system's going to work and how players are going to find these resources in the game. And then you have to figure out how to make the game interesting enough for people to grind and want to buy the tokens that the programmers and developers are going to use to finance the project. However, this is where we come into the SEC's problems with this. You have to have the fully developed game ready to go before any of these assets can be sold, or else you have to go through some really, really harsh looks at you. So the idea is that you have a fully functioning game, and that you would launch it with the ability to have the tokens, and you wouldn't even push selling the tokens. At first, you would be like, you know how Entropia Partners and all of those sites give you the option to like watch ads to get watch ads or do crowdfunding tasks to earn PED for Entropia, or like how browser games let you get benefits in the game by watching an ad from Google AdSense. Well, you could do the same basic thing in the beginning and sell your tokens to people as benefits in the game for watching an ad or doing these crowdfunding tasks, and that people could get like bundles of things to advance themselves, or you could be like, you do this to get this, you do this to get this. And eventually, the players who go out there and farm a lot are going to want to find a way to sell their tokenized assets. And you let the players kind of figure out how to put it on market and get it tradable, right? Your idea is that the token is immediately usable in the game for benefits in the game. And then you can, once a market is established, then you can totally sell the tokens on the market to finance your project instead of using the inefficient advertising model, or crowdfunding, or like crowdsourced task model that's, it's really grindy and lame. And I did do that with like Entropia Partners and Pedflow. I did them back in the day. And those are really grindy and lame things to do to earn your keep. Now, like, there's plenty of things you can do that'll still run you afoul of the SEC. Is if you mention that the item was tradable, then you're like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. If that's a part of your marketing component for the game, then you're still gonna have to go through some clearancing. But I actually think that the idea is pretty novel, and I would try to negotiate that landmine if we could ever get to the point where we'd have a finished product in a game. Thanks for watching my show. I hope you liked it. Captain Trips is really getting me down. I'm stuck inside all the time.